I think the sum of a runner is not found in their achievements. It's not found in the times they've run or the distances they've covered, or even the races that they've run in. The sum of a runner is found in the person that they are, in their soul. And here on the morning of the North Face 100, I got to reflect on who I am, on who Mary is, but also who we all are as runners. Are there commonalities that bind us together, similarities in our journeys and stories, or do we all have very different reasons for being here, very different whys? We're very fortunate to be surrounded by people who inspire us and who push us to levels we never would have imagined possible. And it's long been an idea of mine to sit down with these people and try to get underneath the surface of their endurance journeys. To try to get to the core of them as a person and really discover what makes them tick, why they do what they do. And to try and find out where this all ends. I'm obsessed with it, finding why. And this is the perfect setting to do it.
My name is John. I am 45 years of age. I'm from Manchester originally in the UK. I currently reside in Bangkok in Thailand.
Mikey Neville, 45, Bangkok.
Originally?
Chichester, South Coast.
Sit here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My name is Mary. I'm 45 years old and I live in Thailand, but I'm from England.
Where?
Congleton, Cheshire.
And my name's Ben Bridges. I'm 44 years old and I'm from originally Tunbridge Wells in Kent and now live in Bangkok, Thailand.
My first, what I would call a proper run, which was in the Lake District, and I just saw this, set up camp with the family and just saw this hill and said to Dad, I need to go up that hill. And it was the first time he kind of said, go for it. And it was, 13, 14, and that sense of freedom. I was suddenly allowed to just go and explore and run and feel the space, the big space of the Lake District. And getting to the top of that hill, I think that's probably that first run buzz, and that was it.
To run cross country as a kid, and one of the sort of famous fixtures that we used to go to was at Stonyhurst, which is up in the north somewhere. They had a mile-long drive. It was a big sort of Hogwarts place, and they had a mile-long drive. And I came to realise that being able to tolerate discomfort is as much a part of running as actually being a good runner. And I'd been sort of nip and tuck with this guy all the way, and he was ahead of me in first and second, and he was ahead, then I was ahead, and we go up a climb, he'd pass me. We sort of came onto the drive together. And we sort of had this mile-long sprint to the finish. So he passed me, and then I was just like, I'm not having that. So I passed him, and then he went past me again, and I just was digging deep as I possibly could, pushing myself, and I just about pipped him on the line, collapsed in a heap, could taste the blood in the back of my throat. And obviously that wasn't an enjoyable experience, but the after sort of glow of that, I suppose, to know that you can push yourself very hard, and the reward that comes with it, to feel like, winning the race, it's not always about winning the race, of course, but that was the first sort of memory I have of just like, forcing myself to do something that was inherently disgusting, but actually, feeling good about it afterwards.
I ran a lot in school. I loved running. I loved athletics. If I think about a time that was hard when I felt like I can do it, it would be cross country. I remember running for my school in a cross-country race, and I was pretty terrified, but I realised as I was out on the course that I could do it and do it pretty well. And I ran pretty strong, but it hurt and I pushed myself. I think I came 7th and it was like South Cheshire. So it was quite a big race and a gritty, tough, muddy race. And yeah, I remember feeling quite surprised and I guess surprised how much I enjoyed it, the pain, and yeah, that I felt strong.
Remember in a cross-country race at school, again, probably by this point I was like year 8 or year 9, so maybe like 13 or 14. And I remember being probably halfway through the race, so the furthest point out from the start and finish line that you could get. And I remember just being in the most tremendous like amount of pain, just like stitch, everything hurt. And I was just doing everything I could not to walk. Like I didn't want to walk, and there's no shame in the walking. It was just like my mindset was like, just keep going. And I ran, and I think back now, and I think if my mum or dad had come to watch, I don't think I would have finished that race. And I think when I did finish that race and I'd run through the pain and I tried everything to get rid of that stitch, everything hurt, but eventually I got through and the pain went away, and I was like, I think there was that moment of, there was almost like an epiphany moment for me when I got to the end of the race and I was like, whoa, I can really, like I can push through hard times, like I can tolerate pain. And I realised I might not be the fastest, I might not be the best sportsman, but I can tolerate pain, is how I felt at that point.
That's, in my opinion, that's almost enough. That almost makes it all worthwhile. Almost.
Don't be saying that.
Yeah. I'll check back in later and tell you.
It's got to be the Lakeland 100. So Lakeland 100 is 105 miles, I think it comes in at, round the Lake District. It doesn't go over any peaks, but it goes over sort of various sort of high passes. You start on the Friday night, so you run through the night, then you run the whole day Saturday, through Saturday night, most of us do anyway, and then finish sometime Sunday morning. And it was a whole new world for me, not only in terms of the physicality of it and the absolute brutal course, and navigation was not easy, but also the fact running through 2 nights. I mean, they talk about in ultra running the second dawn being a sort of almost spiritual experience. And it pretty much was for me. When we were going into the second night, I started to really struggle. I was sort of hallucinating. I was seeing like faces in the rocks, and I was just like feeling really like at the edge of collapse, essentially. I was sort of falling asleep on my feet. It's happened to me a couple of times where I'm sort of drifting into the side of the path and like nearly falling over. But luckily, and this is what it's all about as well for me, I fell in with this chap, Adrian, and he was struggling too, but we sort of fell in with each other, and he was amazing. He just talked to me. He said, you know, we're going to go around this bend, and then most of what he was saying was probably nonsense, but the fact that someone was talking to me and was with me sort of kept me on track. I'd started the race with my friend Tim, who'd unfortunately had to drop, and he was there at the finish, and so, you know, when actually making me choke, I was thinking about it, like I was almost in tears as I came in, because yeah, because he was there and he was sort of choked up as well. So yeah, that was tough.
I think you probably know what it is, and it's not an event, it's not a race. It was a family event.
You don't, by the way, you don't have to answer this.
Snowy got ill, and for some reason I made myself do a triathlon on that first day. I still don't really remember why I did that. It was just, I think at the time I was training for something. I was doing a lot of swimming and cycling, and it just kind of, it only needed a 10k at the end of the day to do it. And something just at the end of that first day, having done a full Olympic try, you know, just in training, just enjoying it, I thought, I just came up with this idea that might kind of help get through the next few weeks, which was to obviously push myself around everything else that was going on. And I think those 200 days of treatment was, you know, to get through that as a family.
So just for clarity, you did 200 days back to back of an Olympic distance triathlon every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was obviously always around everything else that was going on. So we had so much treatment going on. It took us to the States. It took us all over the place. And, you know, sometimes I feel like saying that I did that during everything that was going on. Again, I feel that was it feels like a very selfish project to kind of look after myself and get myself through it. But it wasn't. It was about showing to Snowy and everyone else that we were fighting it and that we were getting on with everything else around it. It built a community of supporters. It raised £70,000 for the charities that were supporting us, and it gave us, you know, the real hero in that is I was getting on the bike. I wasn't doing them in the tri order a lot of the time. I was saving the bike till, you know, often 10 p.m. at night, just because I knew I had 2 hours to get the bike done before midnight, and there was nothing else going on. Everyone was asleep at that time. So those 2 hours on the bike most days were probably the most painful bit, because I'd already done the swim and the 10K. We'd already been through a lot of treatment with Snowy each day, and it was 2 hours where I just sat there in the dark. You know, a lot of it was on the turbo in the shed in the middle of, you know, cold, dark nights, and I think those 2 hours each day were probably the most painful bits. And, you know, I'd be quite frank about it. Some days I sat there and I'd be on Zwift in Watopia or wherever, you know, 30k in, and I'd be sitting there bawling my eyes out with a glass of wine, and I had 10k to go. But I knew that completion of a triathlon each day was important, and
it meant something.
It meant something, yeah.
So far this has been one of the kindest trail races we've done. I'm not going to jinx it because we have over halfway to go, but we're at 22 kilometres in 2 hours, which is pretty much unheard of over here.
So I had a pretty tough time in my 30s. Ben and I were trying for children, and it was what we really wanted and what I'd always really wanted, and it didn't happen, and that was so hard. And I think for me it was a real struggle for many years. Oh, it's...
Keep going, come on, you're strong.
It was hard. It was really tough because that was all we were focusing on, and we just kept failing and failing, and it was my body, I think. There were times when I couldn't imagine being happy if it didn't happen. And it was, yeah, really hard. Few years, 4 miscarriages. We even tried adoption, and we just kept getting knockbacks and setbacks. I felt bad about myself and really bad about my body, and it had let me down. And then I thought I needed to move on and kind of work on myself physically and mentally, and entering the 10K I thought would be a really positive thing. Like, I'd seen Ben do so well with triathlon. One of his challenges was to run London Marathon and do marathon distance, and I thought a relevant one for me, and we can kind of share in developing ourselves, would be to do that 10K and start training and trying to run and get fit and feel that my body can achieve something. It still shocks me that I'm over it, and I am. It is emotional, but just because you're thinking back to what you've been through. But running for me has been, I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for running. I feel like it saved me, because it changed how I view myself and my body, and I was at such a low critical point with that view, and now I'm in a totally brilliant space.
For me personally, when I haven't suffered a lot of hardship in my life, I've been very lucky, but I fell off a moped in Koh Phangan years ago and broke my leg really badly, both tibia and fibula, and I had a frame screwed in, and I ended up with an infection in the bone. I ended up in hospital for a long time, well, for 3 months off and on with intravenous antibiotics, and at one point they were considering amputation, which is obviously a grim thing. At the time I didn't really run, so it wasn't about running really, but obviously losing your leg is pretty much, you know, a terrible thing to happen. And when I was sort of in hospital, I was thinking, like, I'm not going to take it for granted again, you know, the fact that I can run and, you know, do all these things or dance or whatever. So if it gets better, I'm going to make the most of it, and, you know, I'm going to take the opportunities.
I feel like it was meant to be that I'm making a video about why we run, and we're having one of the best experiences we've had for a long time in Thailand with only 4 or 3k to go. This feels good.
Yeah, it's been a nice little day out, really.
Yeah,
we've
been a pleasure.
Not really suffered at all.
No, and that sometimes is all you need to pin you into it for another 3 or 4 years. One tremendous experience.
It's actually hard. I run because it helps me feel in control, fulfilled, happy, strong, gives me purpose, it gives me joy. It just, I feel like it completes my life.
I run because it is my way of processing things, it's my way of thinking. I run because I love the feeling of being healthy, being out there, doing things, pushing myself. I like the discipline of training towards a goal. I run because I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to see how far running can take me. And I mean both literally, like how far do I think I can eventually run, but also what can running do for Mary and I with our YouTube channel, and you know, everything that goes with it. How many people can I help? But most of all, I guess I run because it makes me feel good.
That's changed from different chapters of my life, I guess. It became about competition. It became about trying to beat others around me that I knew I could beat, and they were within my sights, and it was about beating myself a lot of the time and getting those PBs. And then I think more latterly in, you know, this stage of, I guess, 40-ish with kids, it's become about balance, it's become about space. I guess it's a little bit of, probably a big bit of therapy, getting out each day, getting away from it. And it's about setting an example, of course, for my own kids and making sure that they see me as someone who's going to keep going. So yeah, I run for very different reasons.
It's a question that I've asked myself a lot, particularly in the depths of 100k. Why is a very good question. Why am I doing this? This is actually fundamentally quite unpleasant. So why? I could just be sitting having a beer somewhere. Why am I doing this? I don't know, there's no easy answer. I mean, there are lots of reasons. I think it's a whole sort of combination of things. There's the community, there's the views, there's the chance to explore an area you maybe wouldn't otherwise have done. And ultimately push yourself to do something that is hard, and there comes from that, I think, a sense of satisfaction that you know, you're capable of doing hard things, and that sort of makes you feel good about yourself. So it's yeah, it's a sort of a complex mixture of things.
We're actually officially over the 50k mark now in, hang on, 5:45, really happy. We're now just going to walk it in because we know the two people that are behind us, and we can see all the way down the road, so if they get near, we've got enough in the tank. And that's how you do it. I lied, we decided to jog a bit.
And as we crossed the finishing line in 8th and 9th place in 5 hours and 50 minutes for the 50k, I got to reflect on the why of some of the best people that I know. And to me it came down to just a handful of things. All of us ran as children. We were the lucky ones. Environmentally, we had an advantage not available to everyone. All four of us had had a life trauma that has given us perspective on pain. For some of us it was mental, and for some of us physical, and that definitely helps us during the tougher moments, or days or weeks. But there were also consistent themes around our why in all of our stories. We run for balance. We run for freedom. We run because it makes us feel good, and we run because we know it's the right thing to do. So there really is no one single why. It's a combination of reasons that shift, change and develop as we go through life. Each time pulling us back in, renewing our passion and making us better people. So we've not only found our why, we found many of them. And you can too.
It's not about completing an Ironman, you know, it's not about running a marathon. For many people, pushing themselves is just getting around a park run within the hour each week, and that's okay. And we've got a sport, a hobby that is absolutely inclusive, and I don't think there's any other sport where everyone you walk past or you interact with will give you a smile and want to talk to you. So if you're worried about, you know, running and it hurting a little bit, believe me, the rest of it will make you put that to the back of your mind and enjoy it. So yeah, don't be scared of it. Get out there and give it a go.
Every human, I genuinely believe this, every single human is capable of not only running but doing absolutely incredible things. There just needs to be a bunch of things that build up to allow it to happen, like the creation of discipline, learning about how habits work, mental resilience, like tapping into the well, if you like. Every single human that wants to run can run, without the obvious exceptions, but you get what I'm trying to say is we're our own biggest limiter.
You can do it. People often say to me, I could never run 100 miles, but the chances are you probably could. You know, not straight away, not today, not tomorrow, but if you wanted to, you know, if the will is there, you can do more than you ever think you're capable of. Believe in yourself, you know, you can do it. Everybody can do incredible things. The human spirit is quite something, I think, and you know, people can do far more than they give themselves credit for. If you want to do hard stuff, you can. Just, you know, start small, build it up, believe in yourself, and you'll do it.
I was you. I had no idea. I had no idea that I could do all the things I've done, and you can do it too. Like, I'm proof of that.